Revelation 1 to 5. Well, it doesn't come to any as a surprise to anyone that Revelation is difficult to understand, probably the hardest book of the Bible. What is interesting is how universal that thought is, even among scholars going all the way back through history. Calvin was the great exegete of the Reformation, commentary on every book of the New Testament. Then he comes to Revelation and decides not to do it. That's very fitting for how the book has usually been handled. When it comes to the smaller, intricate matters of interpretation, I would agree. Very, very difficult. I would recommend, and this is not uncommon to think this way, that when we look at the larger scope of the book, the bigger picture, things come into view rather simply. I wrote in my margin a long time ago when I finished reading the book one time, just at the top of the cover or the front page of Revelation, this is where God's authority finally becomes obvious. And I'd recommend this is our prayer, is it not, every day? May your will be done on earth as it's being done in heaven. This is the book that shows how that would work. So let's just look at that broad, high, above the book picture of how it both adds to and even completes our biblical story. 1:1, the revelation of Jesus Christ, sending his angel to his servant John. Now again, John living on Patmos, exiled. He's called a servant. He says he's a brother, one who shares with you. So the lack of description of who he is, especially saying he's not an apostle, seems to make people think that, and I'd agree, he's probably not John, the disciple of Jesus. 1:4, from John to the 7 churches. Now he's probably well familiar with these 7 local churches. Smyrna and Ephesus are on the port of Western Asia Minor. The other 5 churches are inland, and so this is going to be a cyclical letter written to all 7 churches, and they'll pass it through, reading about, of course, not only themselves but each other. 1, 5, and 6. Jesus Christ, the faithful witness, the firstborn from among the dead, the ruler over the kings of the earth. This is telling us where the book is going, and it's setting out again that Jesus is besides all the symbolism that we'll see even today, remember who he is. He is the king. He is a human being. He's also an Elohim, or a theos, but don't lose track, in other words, in 1, 5, and 6 as to where this book is going when it comes to who it will be honoring in the end. 1, 12, and 13. I turned to see those whose voice was speaking to me, and I saw in the middle of the lampstands one like the Son of Man. There it is again, that Jesus is called a human being, made to be reminiscent of Daniel 7 and Daniel 10, where seeing him even in his humanity was a stunning moment. 1:19. Therefore write what you saw, what is, and what will be after these things. So I'd recommend that, because of 1:19, and I'm not alone on this, of course, that we're talking in the book of Revelation to come of the future. This will not be just a recasting of history, the whole book. It will be telling, as a prophet would get, a vision of things to come. Chapters 2 and 3 are these letters to these 7 churches. I won't go through them one by one, but again, these are this is one cyclical letter being sent through all 7. They're being recommended to remain faithful and avoid satanic influence at all costs. Chapters 4 and 5 really set the scene for the entire book, so let's go through that quickly. 4:2, immediately I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne set in heaven, and seated on those, and one sat on the throne. Clearly, Yahweh is the being that's described as sitting on this throne. 4:4, in a circle around the throne were 24 thrones. I won't draw them all, but again, notice these are not angels. They're not messengers. They are beings that are authoritative, have rule. Now that again really matches well with the Old Testament concept of Elohim, created beings. That again, in the ancient world, the greater the king, the greater his entourage. That's how they always thought of it. So the idea that he is being surrounded by authoritative spirits does not diminish Yahweh's grandeur. If anything, it heightens it for the ancient reader. But there's 24 of them. We're not sure why 24. That's just the number we're given. I would say these are, by the way, loyal Elohim, loyal Theoi, created gods who serve the great King, Yahweh. 4, 6 through 8. Around the throne were 4 creatures, and again, I'm not going to try to draw them, a lion, an eagle, a human. And the idea of the greatest of the creatures seems to be the point, including a human. And why or what are we supposed to get from this? I would just recommend just a sense of awe and grandeur and splendor. And the inability to describe what this is like on John's part is the whole point, that he is just stunned overpoweringly with what he is seeing. 4:11, everyone says, you are worthy, Lord and God, to receive glory. This is comparable monotheism at its best. Among all the gods of the world, which one gets these kinds of words? Receive glory and honor and power, since you did two things. You created all things. Imagine the power to create by thought everything that exists. And notice, by your will they existed and were created. He sustains all. He creates all. He sustains all. If you've ever wondered how much you think God controls, just listen to your prayer life and you'll get a good sense of that. 5:1, then I saw in the right hand of the one who was seated on the throne a scroll written on the front and back and sealed with 7 seals. Well, a scroll in the ancient world, Ezekiel 2, Isaiah 29, had the idea of judgment. So the king holding a scroll written on both sides, evidencing that this is a full scroll, if not overflowing with words, probably says to the reader and to John, he is holding, God is, his plan for the world, especially the judgment to come. Think of Matthew 25:31. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne, and all the nations will be assembled before him, and he will separate people one from the other. There is a judgment to come. Jesus talked about that, agreeing with the Old Testament, and that is probably what this scroll indicates. It is sealed on the outside with not just 1, but 7 seals. That probably indicates some kind of completeness. And again, a seal always kept the scroll or a document sealed until the person with the proper authority read it. And so this just simply means heightened authority. We need someone who is almost as authoritative as Yahweh, it would seem to say, to open this scroll. And of course in 5:4, John cries, he weeps bitterly because no one was found worthy to open the scroll. Well, that's until 5:5. Then one of the elders, one of these, said to John, look, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has conquered, and he can open the scroll. Again, lion, that phrase comes from Genesis 49:9. You are the lion's cub, Judah. And so a Davidite, obviously this is Jesus in the story of the Bible, he has been found worthy to take the scroll from Yahweh and open the scroll. And then I looked, it says, and there stood a lamb as though it had been slain. So the story, again, notice the symbolism. Look, a lion. He turns and looks, and it's a dead lamb. It just shows, again, how God's view of authority can be, when it comes to Jesus, is not lion-like, it's lamb-like. It's a humility, actually comes really screaming out of that story. So he takes the scroll from Yahweh. 5, 9, and 10, they sang, and again, everyone in the courtroom is just bellowing this song, you are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, for you were, notice the loyalty and faithfulness of Jesus being expressed by these beings, for you have redeemed us to God by your blood out of every tribe and tongue and people and nation. And by the way, not just them singing, but this is the human chorus again going on. And have made us kings and priests to our God, and we shall reign on the earth. Jesus accomplishes for others that which he, of course, does himself. He suffers, he dies, he reigns, and now he's bringing the world, especially of human worshipers of Yahweh, along with him. And then 5, 12, and 13 to finish. Worthy is the Lamb. Here comes the singing of the song. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing. Blessing and honor and glory and power be to him who sits on the throne, and I think one of the most theologically deep words of the Bible, and. You can catch that. Blessing and power and glory and honor be to him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb forever and ever. Binitarianism. By the time the Bible ends, we start with a worship of one, and by the time the Bible will end, we will have a very clear worship of two. By Yahweh's design, we will worship both him and his Son.